Clara Whitmore froze outside her father's study, her pulse pounding against her ribs. Through the thick mahogany door, she heard his voice, low and commanding. Clara will smile through it or she's out. Simple. The words sliced clean through the silence. Then came her sister's laugh, sharp, delighted. Perfect. Everyone will be there to see it. Their mother murmured approval, smooth as poison. Clara pressed her palm against the cold wall. The annual family Christmas she had spent months planning wasn't a celebration. It was a trap. An ambush crafted by the people who shared her blood. For 29 years, she had been their invisible helper, the quiet daughter who kept everything from falling apart. But tonight, as she backed away from that door, she felt something unfamiliar coil inside her. Not sadness, resolve. The betrayal shouldn't have surprised her. She built her life on being useful, not loved. Every dinner she had cooked while her parents toasted Olivia's new promotion. Every holiday she had planned while they praised someone else's achievements. Even now, the ache sat in her chest like a stone, heavy and familiar. She walked down the hall, the ticking of the grandfather clock marking each heartbeat. She wasn't going to cry. Not for them. Tears were luxuries they hadn't earned. In her car, parked in the frozen driveway, she whispered, "No more." Her breath fogged the window like smoke, and she gripped the steering wheel with shaking hands. By the time she reached her apartment, she already knew what she would do. For the next week, Clara worked in silence. She took midnight calls, spoke to vendors, caterers, and decorators. Her name was on every contract, her credit card on every deposit. She didn't cancel the event. She redirected it. Every tray, every delivery, every glass of wine would still be served, just not to her family. The grand Christmas feast would go on, but the guests would be strangers who needed warmth more than the Whitmores ever had. She created 2 lists, one of debts paid and one of debts collected. When she finished, she leaned back in her chair, exhaustion and satisfaction mixing in her chest like fire and ice. They had built the stage for her humiliation. She would let them perform, only the script had changed. On Christmas Eve, her mother's voice came through the phone, syrupy and false. "Clara, darling, where are you? Everyone's waiting." Clara laughed softly, the sound startling even herself. "Don't wait for me," she said. "And don't wait for the catering either." The silence on the other end stretched thin, brittle as glass. "What do you mean?" her mother demanded. But Clara didn't answer. She hung up, staring out her apartment window at the falling snow. The radiator hummed behind her, and the scent of pine candles filled the air. Outside, chimney smoke curled into the dark sky. For the first time in years, the world felt wide open. "You can measure a life by what you choose to swallow," she whispered. "I'm done swallowing." The Whitmore estate glowed like a movie set that night. Cars lined the street, guests in glittering coats stepped out laughing, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the chandeliers. Clara parked a block away, watching from her window as warm light spilled through frosted panes. She could hear faint echoes of Olivia's voice floating through the cold. "She's always late. Wait until you hear what we've planned for her." The laughter that followed was cruel and bright. Clara smiled faintly. "Go ahead," she murmured. "Give them a show." She stepped out, snow crunching under her boots, an envelope of receipts in her coat pocket. Inside that envelope was every dollar, every deposit, every record of what truly belonged to her. Clara approached the side door, the one she had always used when carrying trays, never as a guest. Her key still worked. Of course it did. No one ever changed the locks for the daughter they assumed would always serve. The moment she stepped inside, warmth enveloped her. Cinnamon candles, polished silver, faint laughter. Her heart pounded as she walked past the kitchen where chefs used to follow her directions.
Now, silence.
She peeked into the dining hall, the glossy table, the crystal glasses, the tree glowing gold. Her family gathered like royalty, toasting each other's lies. When she finally arrives, her mother said sweetly, "We'll make a toast." Clara stood hidden in the doorway, her fingers tightening around the envelope. This wasn't her humiliation anymore. It was her unveiling. The floorboard creaked beneath her boot. Heads turned instantly. Conversation froze. Olivia's smirk faltered. "Well, look who decided to join us," she said with practiced charm. "Don't worry, everyone. The entertainment just arrived." Laughter rippled, shallow and nervous. Clara didn't move. Her coat was still on, snow melting onto the floor. Her calm unnerved them. "Funny," Clara said softly. "That's exactly what I came here to say." Her father's brow furrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" She stepped forward, sliding the envelope across the table until it stopped in front of her mother's glass. "Every invoice, every receipt, all paid by me. Tonight's dinner is being served elsewhere." A murmur rippled across the room. Her mother blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" Clara's tone didn't waver. "The food you planned to gloat over, the feast you thought would mock me, it's already been delivered. Just not here." Her sister's eyes narrowed. "You're bluffing." Clara tilted her head. "Am I?" She gestured to the papers. "You might want to check the signatures." Her aunt leaned over the table, whispering, "It's her name. Every one of them." The air grew heavy. A few guests exchanged glances, unsure whether to stay seated or stand. Clara smiled faintly. "Merry Christmas. Hope you're hungry for humility."
The doorbell rang. Once. Twice.
The sound echoed through the room. Relief flashed in her father's eyes. Maybe a guest, maybe a distraction. "Someone get that," Olivia snapped. A cousin hurried away. When the door opened, the December air swept in, followed by 3 delivery men in dark coats carrying boxes. "Delivery for the Whitmore family," one announced. "Prepaid. Signed by Clara Whitmore." Her father's voice boomed. "We didn't order anything." One of the men set a box right in the middle of the table, on top of the poinsettia centerpiece. "It's all been taken care of, sir," he said. Clara folded her arms. "That's your dinner," she said quietly. "Or what's left of it." Her mother's hand trembled as she opened the first box. Empty. The second, too. Confusion shifted into dread. "What is this?" her mother demanded. "Your generosity," Clara said. "Everything you planned. To eat tonight is being served downtown. At the homeless shelter." Gasps filled the room. Her aunt whispered, "The salmon?" Olivia's face drained of color. You gave it all away?" "No," Clara corrected. "I gave it back to people who needed it." Her father's fist slammed the table. "Ungrateful child." She met his glare head-on. "Not ungrateful. Just done being used." Silence swallowed the room whole. The delivery men tipped their hats and left, snow swirling behind them. The door clicked shut, and the quiet that followed was absolute. Candle flames wavered in the draft. "How dare you embarrass us like this?" her mother hissed. "In front of everyone." Clara's voice stayed calm. "You wanted a performance. I just rewrote the ending." Her sister stood, voice sharp. "You think this makes you noble? You'll regret this." Clara smiled. "Maybe, but not tonight." She leaned in slightly. "Tonight, you're the joke." Then she turned away, her boots crunching faintly on the rug as if punctuating every heartbeat in the room. "Clara." Her father's voice cracked like thunder. "Don't you walk away from me." She paused, then faced him. "You've been walking away from me my entire life." His face darkened, but the weight of the guests watching kept him still. She took a slow breath. "You built this family on appearances. I just reminded you what's underneath." Her mother's voice trembled. "We are your family." "No," Clara said quietly. "You're my blood." "That's not the same thing." The words landed like stones dropped in still water. The ripples reached every corner of the room. Clara reached into her pocket again, pulling out a folded card. "One last thing." She placed it in front of Olivia. Her sister hesitated, eyes darting to their father. "What is this?" "Open it," Clara said simply. Olivia flipped it open and froze. Her eyes widened, face draining of color. This isn't real." "Oh, it's real," Clara replied. "Every bill, every charge you ran up on my cards, I've closed them." Every wedding payment you made with my funds reversed. Her voice was soft but lethal. Try your florist tomorrow. See what happens. Olivia fumbled for her phone, hands shaking. You're bluffing. Clara folded her arms. Check. The glow of the screen lit Olivia's face. Within seconds, her lips parted in horror. It's declined, she whispered. Her father's eyes widened. You canceled her accounts? I canceled my generosity, Clara replied. There's a difference. The guests whispered behind their napkins. One uncle muttered, serves her right. Her mother's face reddened with shame. You've destroyed this family's reputation. Clara's laugh was quiet. No, mother. You did that yourselves. The air crackled with tension. Olivia's voice cracked. Why are you doing this? Clara's gaze softened, but only slightly. Because you never saw me. I was just the help. The planner. The daughter, who kept the lights on while you took the credit. Her mother clutched her pearls, trembling. We gave you everything. Clara shook her head. You gave me orders. Her father slammed his fist again. Enough, he barked. You've humiliated us enough for one night. Clara stepped closer, lowering her voice. No, father. I haven't even started. She turned toward the staircase. Gasps followed. Where are you going? Her mother called. Upstairs, Clara said simply. To collect what's mine. Her sister rushed after her, but stopped short when Clara's look turned sharp as glass. You wouldn't dare, Olivia whispered. Wouldn't I? Clara ascended slowly, her boots echoing against polished wood. Behind her, voices rose, pleading, scolding, frightened, but no one followed. The hallway above was quiet, the air thick with the scent of pine. She walked past framed portraits of smiling faces that had never smiled at her. What a perfect lie, she muttered. At the end of the hall stood her old room. The lavender door was still there, the brass knob gleaming faintly. She pushed it open. Everything was exactly as she'd left it, like a museum exhibit of who she used to be. Trophies.
Books.
A snow globe cracked down the middle. The bed neatly made. She knelt beside it, pulling out a small lockbox hidden beneath the frame. The key turned easily. Inside were papers she'd collected for years, ownership shares of the family company, her quiet investments, her real inheritance. Clara sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the documents. Her father's signature gleamed on each one, careless, overlooked. You never even noticed, she whispered. All those late nights at the office, all those payroll files she handled, she had turned neglect into leverage. Downstairs, the muffled chaos continued. The party had become an uproar. She could hear Olivia shouting, her mother crying. Clara folded the papers carefully, tucking them into her coat pocket. The quiet power in that motion steadied her heartbeat. You wanted to erase me, she murmured. Instead, I became the foundation. Her sister's voice floated faintly from below. Clara, what are you doing up there? It was trembling now, stripped of arrogance. Clara opened the door and looked down the stairwell. Just taking what's mine, she said evenly. Olivia's breath hitched. You can't. You wouldn't. Clara's lips curved slightly. You've always mistaken quiet for weakness. Her boots echoed as she descended. The documents in her pocket rustled like an anthem. And for the first time, the silence in the house followed her instead of them. When Clara reached the bottom, the guests were restless. Some whispered toward the door. Others stared at her with something that almost looked like respect. Her father straightened his jacket, trying to reclaim control. This is family business, he said firmly. You don't air it in public. Clara smiled faintly. Exactly, father. Family business. She laid the papers flat on the table, right beside the unopened box. And it seems I own most of it now. The words hung heavy. Her mother's breath caught. Olivia's mouth fell open. Someone dropped a fork. The world tilted. Her father went red. That's impossible. It's legal, Clara said calmly. And notarized. She met his gaze without flinching. While you mocked me, I bought in. While you planned my downfall, I built my stake. Her mother's voice wavered. How could you? Easily, Clara interrupted. All it took was being invisible long enough. She pushed the papers toward him. You might want to read before you shout again. Her father's hand trembled as he scanned the documents. The color drained from his face. Olivia stepped forward, eyes wide.
Why?
Why would you do this to us? Clara's expression softened, almost pitying. Because you made me believe my worth came from your approval. I had to prove you wrong. You've destroyed our family, her mother whispered. No, Clara said quietly. I've just stopped pretending it was whole. The guests shifted uneasily. Someone whispered, good for her. Another murmured, about time. For the first time, Clara's shoulders relaxed. The air felt lighter. Her father slammed his palm on the table again, but the sound no longer carried power. You think this makes you strong? He spat. It makes you alone. Clara met his glare. No, father. It makes me free. Her sister sank into a chair, shaking her head in disbelief. You've ruined everything. Clara looked at her, calm. Everything was already broken. I just stopped pretending. The truth in her words spread across the room like a slow-burning fire. No one dared to speak again. Clara picked up the documents, folding them neatly and slipping them into her coat. Merry Christmas, she said softly, but there was no bitterness now, only release. Her mother's lip trembled. Clara, wait. We can talk. Her father's voice cracked. You'll regret this. Olivia's plea followed, fragile. Please don't go. Clara turned at the doorway, meeting their faces one last time. Disbelief, guilt, fear. I didn't burn this house down, she said quietly. I just stopped holding it up. The silence that followed was profound. Guests sat frozen, some averting their eyes. Others stared at Clara like they were witnessing something sacred. She opened the front door. Cold air rushed in, sharp and pure. Snowflakes drifted through the light like scattered glitter. Behind her, someone sobbed softly. She stepped out without looking back, her boots sinking into the fresh snow. The door closed with a deep, final click, the sound of a chapter ending. Outside, the world felt wider. Street lamps glowed golden through the snowfall. The cold bit her cheeks, but she welcomed it. It was honest. It was clean. She walked toward her car, her breath steady, her hands no longer trembling. The envelope of papers pressed against her side. Not vengeance, but proof of reclamation. She didn't look back at the Whitmore mansion. The laughter, the deceit, the expectations, they belonged to her past. Ahead lay quiet streets and possibility. As Clara drove, church bells began to ring in the distance, their sound soft but resonant. Midnight. Christmas had arrived. She rolled down the window, letting the freezing air sting her face. Merry Christmas, Clara, she whispered to herself. The words tasted new. Not like tradition, but like freedom. She smiled, small and genuine. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the supporting character in someone else's story. She was the author. 3 months later, the final papers were signed. The family business was restructured, with Clara as the majority shareholder. Her father took early retirement. Her mother rarely spoke in public. Olivia's grand wedding was quietly moved to a courthouse. The town whispered about the Whitmore scandal, but Clara didn't care. She spent her mornings at a small cafe, reading the paper by the window. The barista, a kind man named Henry, once asked, "Don't you miss them?" Clara smiled. You can't miss what was never real. At board meetings, Clara sat at the head of the table. The first time she did, her father couldn't meet her eyes. He mumbled his report and left early. The silence he left behind felt like closure. Clara ran the company with precision, not revenge, but integrity. Employees who once ignored her now sought her approval. She didn't gloat. She just worked. Each decision she made was another brick in the home she built for herself, one made of truth, not obligation. Sometimes Clara still thought about that Christmas night, the moment everything shifted. But there was no bitterness left. Only peace. Healing, she'd learned, didn't always come from forgiveness. Sometimes it came from distance, from choosing herself, From finally standing in your own light. As she walked home one snowy evening, she looked up at the sky, flakes settling in her hair. The world was quiet.
Clean. Hers.
For the first time in her life, she whispered not to them, but to herself, I'm free. The reckoning would come gift-wrapped. If you value stories of respect, dignity, and justice, please subscribe. It means more than you know, and it lets me keep sharing the lessons life has carved into me.